Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, I'm super excited. Okay, so I'm supposed to kill 20 seconds of time in the beginning, which I never know what to do because while people tune in.
Do you have a song you want to sing?
Oh, no.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I thought maybe something was stuck in your head and you could just hum a little tune.
I probably have this song One More Time from the Trolls World Tour movie stuck in my head.
Me too. One more time.
Yeah, and then my son, who's 4, does this. Who's good?
My son went through a huge. My son is almost 2, and Trolls driving up north. Trolls 1 and 2 saved us. That was the drive basically, and he was just mesmerized.
It's so good. The movies are so good, and then the soundtracks are so good. That was the
music is great.
Was the soundtrack to all of the quarantine.
Yeah,
because we listened to it on repeat every day for 4 months.
I think we should just talk about Trolls this whole time.
I know.
I mean, I could basically go through beat for beat every single part of the movie.
It's so good. My son is being King Trollex for Halloween, and
admirable of your son, because that is not he's not in the movie that much. It's the very beginning and very end, basically.
Yeah, we rewatched that part. Yeah. And he knows every little part, even when it says "Ready, little buddy? Okay, family, love, music," and then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, "Wow, you love that part."
Yeah. Does he getting ready for the bass to drop when they're really get ready, get ready? Yeah. There's a big suspense there.
He loves that. He even has this little mixer,
Oh yeah, that's so cute.
Mixer, and he'll be and it has the little drop button. Okay, we've stalled long enough.
Perfect. Great. None of that is true, by the way. I don't even have a kid. Emily doesn't have a kid. We never watched Trolls. That was all made up.
It's all made up. Yeah. Actually, I'm actually in his living room right now. We're just hanging out. Cool. Okay. So I was going to say the official introduction. Okay, so welcome to the Cackle. This is EntryPoint's weekly interview series highlighting small businesses, startups, and the people that make an impact on our community. And today we're talking about building an authentic investment relationship, which is perfect to have Brett on because I feel you guys are that's your thing.
It's kind of our shtick. Yeah, that's our thing.
Which I do love, and is absolutely true, having known you guys for a while now.
A long time
now.
Yeah, I've been doing this for, I think, going on 9 years. So
God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So if anybody just if you have questions or anything, you can put them in the comments. We're live on Twitter and Facebook, and if you're watching on either of those and you put in the comments, we can still see it. But yeah, so Brett, how do you say your last name? Because I've literally never known in 10 years.
Oh, that's disappointing. It's deMarrais.
deMarrais. I think it's because I don't say it like that in my head.
How do you say it in your head?
deMarrais.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
I shouldn't say it out loud even, because then it's just going to even be more in there. And then I've kind of thought maybe it's deMarrais, and then
it's not.
deMarrais.
deMarrais, yeah.
deMarrais. Oh my gosh, who are you? Forget what I said earlier. I don't even know you anymore.
I know. There's no way we could be friends.
Okay, so you are a partner at Ludlow Ventures. You guys are located in downtown Detroit. Well, now quarantining all over the place.
Our office, which is empty, is in downtown Detroit.
Cool. Yeah. And then you guys are you, Jonathan, Blake, and then do you have any other team members right now?
That's it. That's the 3 Musketeers.
Yeah, you guys do all of the coolest things always. You guys did that VC in the car.
Carpool VC.
Carpool VC. Before live streaming was cool, you guys did a thing, which means that you must be good investors because you were on that trend before it was a thing.
We were cutting edge. It definitely had nothing to do with the fact that me and Jonathan were too lazy to write blog post thought pieces.
And the fact that you guys carpooled.
And we carpooled. Yeah. We took his kids to school and then dropped him off, and then carpooled every day to work for a very long time.
Chaco says carpool VC is OG.
It is.
From backstage. Cool. So talk a little bit about Ludlow Ventures and kind of like what things you guys invest in, what makes you kind of different from other firms, etc.
Yeah. So Ludlow started, it was started by my partner, Jonathan. He was angel investing. And then I came along and he decided I was his soulmate and invited me to be a part of it. And we raised the fund, our first fund. We started raising it in 2012 and finished like the back half of 2013. So it took forever. But the philosophy was we're going to kind of just try to get into the best deals across the country. And we're going to do that by being like good human beings, which seems maybe trite and weird to say, like that's a differentiator. Hey, we're going to be nice. But that's what we did. And we were able to get into some really like good deals and start building a reputation just by being good humans that built like really strong relationships with, founders and get to know them as people. And much like the conversation we had to start the show, like about trolls and kids and like life outside of, just the transactional stuff. We do that with our founders and it's been really successful. And so, like I said, we invest across the country, mostly in seed stage deals, which is like, I would say they have like a product or a working prototype, maybe a little bit of revenue. And we invest at that stage and sort of like, go along for the ride and help them where we can with, growing their business and overcoming the challenges that are, prone to rise up when you start a startup.
You guys have made like some really like crazy good investments. Like there'll be things that'll be like, you guys invest really early in so many things that later on I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that on my like that's in my whatever. Like, can you say like a couple of things that you guys have invested in that have like really been the coolest? I'm like looking at your website right now, being like, say the one I want you to say.
Well, why don't you say the one you want me to say?
Okay, you guys are in 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Honey, I thought both of those were like super awesome.
Yeah. So Honey was great. We were like the first check or one of the first checks. It's a bit of a disputed topic amongst the early investors who was the actual first check, but yeah.
I found them first.
Same round regardless. And so we were one of the first checks there and they had an awesome journey and exit to PayPal. And it's probably one of the products that people say like, oh, I use that so much. Like I saved like $20 like last week, which is like super cool to hear. 100 Thieves is really cool because it's like the forefront of media and sports and entertainment. They're like an esports team. And so we have esports is basically regular sports, but with video games. And we have a team in like League of Legends, which is one of the largest, competitive games in the world. I think 100 million people like watch the world championships every year, something crazy, like bigger than NBA.
That's something I didn't know anything of. And then when I started paying attention, because I started seeing like 100 Thieves, like with you guys involved, just because I stalked you. And then I was like, what is this 100 Thieves thing they're all speaking of? And then like looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, like esports is like a huge thing that like people watching things on Twitch and like.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, Twitch is entirely based off of just people's love of video games and that community. And really all credit goes to my partner, Blake. He was big into that community before it was like even super popular. And he kind of brought 100 Thieves to Ludlow and to a bunch of other people in Detroit. Dan Gilbert is a large component of that and made a lot of that happen. And then obviously the founder and CEO Matt, who was like a former Call of Duty pro and just like phenomenally entrenched in that community and well connected. And I think the three of them came together to form like an amazing organization that's doing so many cool things now.
Yeah, and they were originally in Detroit, or they're just from Detroit.
No, so Blake obviously from Detroit, Dan obviously a big Detroit guy. Matt the team is based in LA, which is where like a lot of the big esports stuff happens, and a lot of the big creators are in LA because LA is still Hollywood and creator central. And it's crazy seeing like all the talent agencies out there starting to support creators, like individual creators, YouTubers and Twitch people and Instagram models and all that kind of stuff. Like 100 Thieves just signed as a client of CAA. Which is like super weird to think about.
Yeah, that is like really crazy. That whole like new industry of like things that are made because of the internet kind of thing is just like so insane to me.
Crazy.
This is completely unrelated, but that's what we do here. So I was like reading something the other day about these agents who are like for for like influencers and like the terms they have to sign with their contracts and all this stuff of like, it's things you wouldn't even like consider of like how they get like branding and all of these things like put in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so that person that you watch on TikTok that does like these like cool things on TikTok that I'm always like, oh, I wish I was that cool. And like actually has like an agent. And I'm like,
oh yeah, there are very complicated business structures around all these like creators you just see. It's funny that you mentioned that we, this also was not like planned, but it's a good segue to like promote a company. We announced yesterday or the day before our investment in a company called Stir, which is they're basically like helping to create all the tools that the creators can use to run that business. And so money management and like if they have a manager and they collaborated and whatever else, and a brand pays them, like how does that money flow through automatically, and just creating like amazing tools for them to help run that complicated business that you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's so good because it does seem like that's kind of one of these things that people are just figuring out as they go along. And so like having that kind of like all put together for them does seem like it's going to be more and more necessary. It's like all these people, I'm like,
yeah, for sure.
Interesting. How can I get TikTok famous? I don't even know. So wait. Let's go back. And then Honey is like really cool because that's is it still a plugin on your
yeah, it's a Chrome extension. Okay. And so basically you put it on your browser if you use Google Chrome or actually Safari or I think any other browser at this point. And when you're shopping, you basically click a button and it tries to find you the most savings it can on the internet by applying coupons. And they do a really great job. Like I save money all the time, which is phenomenal. And then they also have what they call Honey Gold, which is like their cashback system. And so every time you make a purchase, you get a little bit of Honey Gold and you can redeem it for things like Amazon gift cards or, other stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool. So rather than going to Retail Me Not and then typing it in literally every time I'm trying to check out on the old internet.
Yeah, don't do that. That's old school.
Yeah, that really is.
Just press the Honey button.
Oh, Molly just said, I love honey.
Great.
Yeah, so I feel like I always like kind of like stalk your guys' portfolio for things I should be doing. And one thing okay, we're talking way too much about this, but I will switch right after this.
Are we going back to trolls? Is that what you're about to revert back to?
Yeah, and then at one time on trolls. One time I was somewhere with Blake and he was telling me about the Notarize company. And like at the time we were filing a lot of like adoption paperwork for our first son. And I was like going all over the place trying to get things notarized. And he was like, oh, all you got to do is go on the internet and get it notarized. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? They can do that on the internet? And then like now I know everybody. Like I'm
good.
Like, oh,
thank you.
This, like do that. So that's like my nerdy thing I like about your guys' like portfolio. I'm like, that's like the lamest one, but I'm like, an online notary.
It's such a big problem. Like going to a notary in person is such a big pain in the butt that like when we were pitched that business, it was like a no-brainer. And Pat, the founder, is like phenomenal and super experienced and just a good dude. And they've definitely been helped by COVID too, because, obviously.
The interwebs are so popular now. Okay, so I feel like you guys do a really good job of kind of building these relationships with entrepreneurs and like with other investors and things, well, mostly with entrepreneurs. But how do you feel like tech investors can best support the companies that they're invested in through like successes and hardships and kind of like making that partnership work?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I don't think it's like a formulaic answer. Like there's no like if this then that. It's just, I mean, it's going to sound like this is the dumbest answer ever. Like be a human and realize that when, at least for me, we're not investing in like financial instruments. They're like people behind the businesses. Mm-hmm. And it's not like an asset class. Like, oh, I'm going to do some like stocks and bonds and then some venture. Like these are like real people you're investing in. And at the end of the day, they have their own stuff going on, both within the company, like hardships, like, hey, we lost a deal, or like, we can't find this person, or my COO just like quit, or whatever it is. But then also like, like I have a kid who won't sleep, and like, I just had to put my dog down, or like, my parents are sick and I have to like, whatever. And so like, there's all this complicated stuff. And I think at the earliest stages of investing, like most of our job is like a little bit mentor and a lot of bit therapist, like just telling people that their journey is like completely normal. It is not atypical to like get down and feel bad and like things are going wrong. Like every single startup, even the ones that you see like Uber or Airbnb or Stripe, like I guarantee all those founders felt the exact same way as every single other person we invest in. And they just came out the other side and then like got this like hero narrative put around them by like media and the other people who invested in them. But it's not like rosy up until that point. And there's no overnight successes. And so just chatting with them and being open. And I think the thing that we really try to do is like from the very onset, create this foundational relationship where a lot of our first calls with entrepreneurs are not talking about, you know, like where they went to school or their previous job experience or like what their idea is. It's like, what do you do for fun? Like, are you married? Do you have kids? Are you obsessed with dogs or cats? Or do you ride a bike or play golf or like play video games or whatever it is?
Golf.
Hey. Yes, of course I play golf. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
I played golf in high school and then I was like, no, this is actually terrible.
Golf is, I find it phenomenal. I think it's it's a challenge. It's a really hard game, but it's also really nice. It's a good excuse. I bet my wife's going to watch this, but whatever. It's a good excuse to like get away for 4 hours and be with my friends and not have to like answer my phone and stuff. So I think that's a big reason a lot of people play golf is just the forced solitude. But yeah, whatever the common thread is, like we try to get.
So go figure.
Yeah.
Forced solitude. I'm like, that's terrible.
Yeah. Well, for the introverts, it's very nice. I think it's really just about like, getting to know them as humans and what makes them tick and what common threads you have so that when things are going bad, they feel comfortable coming to you and like being honest and transparent. And that's when you can help in whatever way you can. And sometimes it's listening and sometimes it's saying like, hey, I can connect you to a founder who has gone through the same thing and either solved this problem or didn't. And you can learn from them and, just kind of take it from there. But it's definitely not like a formulaic thing because I think, you're dealing with people and there's no one single way to deal with, any person.
Yeah, definitely. I one time heard, I probably made this up, but one time I saw Doug Song talking from Duo Security and he was saying how he felt like every day was like one of the 3 worst days or the 3 best days as a founder. Like you're like, oh my God, I'm killing it. Everything is great. Like the top of my game. And then the next day you're like, I am such a loser. This is probably all worth nothing.
Yeah. I mean, those swings are, if not day to day, like sometimes hour to hour. And it's like a really tough thing to deal with. And that's why people get burnt out. And so I think one of the things I ask our founders the most is like, when's the last time you take a vacation? Like what's scheduled? How are you having fun? Like, what are you doing this weekend? Because I think it's important to like step back and unwind. And it's important for them mentally, but I also think it's good for the business because it's so hard to like work on the business when you're working like in the business. Like when you're in the weeds, it's hard to get this like 10,000 foot view of what should be like the next strategic decision you're going to make or how you're going to like get to the next level. It's just like constantly putting out fires is not a good way to like go through building a company.
I think that is so true. Like I tend to do like, I feel like we all kind of tend to do that, but like I'll be like doing so much stuff and like be so busy and everything. And then if I'm like, okay, I'm going to like go take a half day and like go do something and stuff. It's like always then when I'm like not thinking about work that I'll like get some idea that I'm like,
yeah, I think it's super important.
We got to do it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And I think, some of the, call it like hustle porn where it's like you got to work from like sun up to sundown and like sleep 4 hours and then work out in the morning and then like whatever, like I don't think that's realistic for most people. And so I encourage people to kind of try to do some of the opposite sometimes. Not to say don't work hard, but like give yourself a break.
Yeah, that's totally how public accounting was. Everyone, when I was in public accounting, I know I was like, everyone's like, you were? And I'm like, yeah. When I was in public accounting, people would always compare how many hours they worked. They'd be like, oh my God, I was at the client till like 2 a.m.
Yeah, I think that's really toxic to like be like, yeah. And I'm a victim of it too. Not so much anymore, but before I was a venture capitalist, I had a company and like, there were some nights where I like stayed overnight at the office and I would like sort of like be like, hey, I stayed overnight to the people coming in. And it was like a badge of pride for me at the time. And now I feel like so foolish that I was proud of that.
Yeah.
I was also younger and could do that. I
think maybe that is kind of a beginning of career.
Yeah.
I guess we're still kind of in the beginning of our career, but
yeah, but we have family. Like there's no way my wife would ever like she almost never lets me do anything overnight.
Let alone work. That would
Yeah,
be the weirdest
let
thing.
alone work.
I think that's like really interesting how you kind of say like you continue to try to like view all of the entrepreneurs you're working with like they're actual people who are running these companies, and I think that's something like we've totally gotten apart. Like it's gotten harder and harder to do that, and particularly in 2020, I think like people just are forgetting like that the people they're bullying online or whatever are like actual people, or like that other people are going through things, and then like you just kind of are seeing one instance of something that's happening and you're not realizing what's happening. How do you feel like you guys keep that perspective of like understanding that there are people that are doing things behind?
That's an interesting question. How do I
Fix
keep
society,
perspective?
good.
How do I keep perspective that the people I'm working with are humans? Yeah.
I know, that's a real 2020 question there.
Yeah. That one put my brain in a pretzel. I don't know. Like, I think part of it is like, this is going to sound corny, but like being in the Midwest, I think helps. Like the community here compared to like San Francisco and LA and New York is very much like more neighborly, and they check in, and like, at least my experience with the Midwest, and I've grown up in Michigan my whole life. And so I think bringing that to those conversations is like often so refreshing that I don't really have to try to remember people are human, because unfortunately, we're some of the only people who like interact with them that way, that we chat about that stuff normally. Like they're bringing stuff up and like letting us into their lives. And so like, that's the easiest reminder, is like when we get on a call and they're like, by the way, my wife's pregnant. It's pretty easy to like, detour from like talking about numbers or sales or a new hire or when we're raising money next, and talk about, real life stuff like, having a baby, or, a fun trip someone has planned, and like diving into that. I think I talked to a founder we're invested in, and he just closed a big round, and we started talking about like what he was going to do, and he said he's going to go spearfishing, and I was like, you spearfish like without like whatever? And he's like, yeah, like I like hold my breath and go spearfishing. And then we had like a 30-minute conversation about
crazy that do that. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
It's crazy, but like that call we were having, we didn't talk anything about work for the rest of the time. I wanted to know everything about how he learned how to like hold his breath for 15 minutes at a time, and like whatever. It was fascinating.
15 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like, absolutely insane.
Yeah, I know. Do you know Antonio Luck? He goes spearfishing and has pictures of him like pulling up an entire tuna, like actual.
It's crazy.
From the depths of the ocean, and I'm like, you would never catch me jumping in the ocean like that.
You wouldn't catch me doing that either, but I'm fine to ask questions about it and learn with like a deep fascination. So exactly. That's the kind of stuff. Like it's easy when people are open and transparent and don't feel like you're just there to like check in on your money.
Yeah, that's good. I think that is kind of like even the stepping back from work to get a perspective on things, but like stepping back from just having work conversations with people you work with to actually like build a relationship with them. So this is kind of something that I always am like obsessed about, that I was going to ask you about. So I kind of always hear over and over that investors prefer a warm intro to companies. And like regularly on panels, you'll say like, how should people approach you and stuff like that? And like, people will be like, you should be able to find a guy who knows the guy who knows me, who can warm intro you. And then I'll know that they're cool with you. And then I'll be cool with you. And then we'll talk about investing in your company. But I feel like it's such BS, like all BS. So watch you say that this is such a good idea. But I feel like there are people that don't know anybody in the venture community. They don't know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows you. And so I feel like that's just like another way of like kind of keeping people out and keeping some people in. So like what tips do you have, or like what's your philosophy on that? And like what tips do you have for people that are totally on the outs?
Yeah, obviously warm intros are better if you can get them, but that's a big if. And I think that the whole like if you're a real entrepreneur, you should be able to like hustle your way into a warm intro is like also BS, because it's just this inefficient use of your time, really. Like I think reaching out cold is like completely fine, but doing it in the right way, I think that's kind of like the lowest bar. And when I say the right way, it's like don't obviously make it seem like it was like a form email that you sent to like 400 other people. Take the time to like do a little bit of research about who you're sending the email to, maybe like watch stuff like this or previous things they've written and that kind of stuff, and also be super succinct. So like the cold emails that I respond to typically have like the following traits. They're super short. Like when I open it, it's not like a book I have to read. It's like a little intro and then like what your ask is and then like your name. And so it's like, hold on, I'm going to try to craft like a cold email that I would respond
Perfect.
to. Yeah. It's like, you know, like, hey, Brett, I'm a big fan of like Carpool VC, or I saw your interview on like the EntryPoint, the Cackle. I think this is what this is called. It's in the corner. Yeah. On the Cackle. And so I wanted to reach out. I'm starting a company. We built XYZ. We've had really good traction so far. Like 300 people are using it and we're growing 20% month over month. If you have the time, I'd love to chat with you about it. Period. Yeah. Done. I'll respond to that almost 90% of the time, and or almost 100% of the time. Maybe less now if people just use that form template that I just said and send it to me. But I'll feel obligated. It's the worst are like, dear sir, or like super formal, like dear Mr. deMarrais, like this, like 400 paragraphs, really bad. If I can tell it's like if I could tell it's a form email.
Dear Brett deMarrais.
Yeah. If they spell it the same, but as they're like typing it and they're saying deMarrais in their head, I don't really know. So I guess that's fine.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think even I made the mistake of like, when I first started my career, a lot of like what we did was like cold outreach to companies. And I would write I'm so embarrassed by the emails I wrote reaching out to companies. I'd be like, hey, I'm Brett deMarrais from Ludlow Ventures. And like, this is what we do. And this is why we can provide value. And I would love to take 5 minutes of your time to chat. And it feels like you're setting up an inferior power dynamic when you do that. And I think the most important thing is to realize that like VCs don't have jobs without entrepreneurs. And it's very much my job to like talk to really good, interesting people who are starting cool things. And so I need those conversations as much as you need the conversations with me to get money. And so it's a very much like symbiotic relationship. And so short emails to the point that, you know, I think the best sales are not like, you're not convincing me I need you. You're like telling me, you know, a problem I can solve. And it's like you're helping me, I'm helping you. It's an exchange. And so being short, like, hey, I have a really great idea for you. You should like get on the phone with me. That's great. Like, I'll do that for sure. If it seems like, please, like, just give me a chance, like take a meeting on me. It seems like I'm doing you a favor, which, you know, I would love to do, but that's less attractive than just saying like, oh, wow, I might've found the next deal that, you know, I can bring to my partners and, you know, make me look good and make money for our investors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's totally my answer to like the second or third question or whatever of like how you keep that perspective of like there's people behind the companies and things is like just how your perspective is that it's a symbiotic relationship between the entrepreneur and the investor. Like you need them, they need you. Versus I think a lot of people get really hyped up in the ego of like, I have the money and you need the money. So
yeah, I think that's really wrong and detrimental. And I the funniest thing is almost every single entrepreneur I talk to like starts the call by like thanking me for my time. And my response almost all the time is like, don't thank me. Like it's my job. Like we're here. Like I'm here for a reason. Thank you for your time. Like same thing. Like I would have nothing to do if I wasn't having these conversations. I would have no job. So thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me to like honor me with like telling me your dream. It's crazy.
No, that is really nice. See, maybe it's really nice. I think that's true. Like I'm like, you're nicer than me, Brett.
Well, some people would say otherwise, I'm sure.
Probably. So then here's the question. And you don't have to be like an expert at this or anything like that. But so I feel like something I've noticed just in doing a lot of research on Detroit is that, you know, the community, the city of Detroit community is predominantly Black, and the investment community and the tech, like the founders of tech companies are predominantly white men. And it seems like that is kind of pulling away and getting worse, like that gap. And so like as a venture capitalist, like operating in Detroit, and I know you guys do a ton of work like outside of Michigan, so that's why it's like kind of an outsider view a little bit, but you're operating in the city of Detroit. Like how do you reconcile like that gap and like that gap widening, and what role do you feel like the investment community has in sort of like building a more diverse startup community?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. As you said, I'm definitely not an expert, and it's such a big like problem that I probably will not give it a deserving answer, especially in the time we have. But I think in general, there's some responsibility. I think as a private investor, my biggest thing is doing what I can as like a private citizen, which is separate. But as an investor, investing in companies that hopefully narrow that gap in some way, shape, or form. I think, one of the craziest things I heard at the beginning of the pandemic when schools went like completely remote is like people with like less access to, like a laptop and internet and stuff were like camping out outside of McDonald's parking lots to like basically get internet so they can like join classes. So I think like digital deserts are a big issue that I think tech is uniquely like able to solve with either lowering of hardware costs, companies that can make access better. I also think there's just like a knowledge gap. I would wager that if you went into most Detroit public schools and like asked people what venture capital is, like you would get zero hands. Like,
yeah,
like there's a big, like, I didn't know what venture capital was. And I come from like a pretty traditional, like went to University of Michigan. Like I had no idea about any of that stuff until I decided to like start a company, and I kind of like learned on the go. And so educating people that this is like a, something they can go into, I think is a big thing. Cause like right now, I just don't think people understand, generally speaking. I have friends who like, I tell them I'm a venture capitalist and they're like, what is that? Like people just don't know this is like a career.
Yeah.
And I also think like, generally speaking, it's like there's a huge disparity in numbers, but even if you were to, I question the impact that, let's say all of a sudden, like 80% of investment professionals in Michigan were, African-American Black, then you have like 20 jobs. There's like, it's such a small group of us that it's not going to affect the community in general. And so, not to say it's not a worthwhile goal, but I think there's more important things that we could, do or focus on that makes a much wider impact and ultimately, ends up changing that disparity.
Yeah, I do think that like education is really important. I think in the Midwest, like people just, they don't have like, a lot of people don't have any experience with like scaling a tech company or investing in a tech company, or like have an uncle that was like a venture capitalist or an angel investor or something like that's like most people. And so I do think like most people don't really understand what that is, or like what a lot about like just building banking relationships or building.
Yeah. And it's tough because this is very much like an apprenticeship business.
Yeah.
And so like it is one of the harder industries to like break into and change. And that's just kind of like how the business is built. And I'm not sure you can change that, because like most of these groups, like we're a team of 3, we're very small. There's like literally a disincentive to hire people because like your management fees are set. We're getting into like the weeds now, but we make, our salaries come from fees we charge with the money that people invested in us. And like every time you add somebody, that's taking money directly out of your pocket after, your office and other business expenses. And so those people really have to be like exceptional people that you want to spend decades working with, because like you're committing to fund life cycles that are, 10, 12 years. And so it's really hard. Like it's a very relationship driven business. And yeah. So, I mean, I'm definitely a big believer that, like excellence in education is like a ladder to get yourself out of situations. And unfortunately, I think Detroit Public Schools doesn't exactly have the best ladder to use to climb up out of that.
Interesting. What do you have like a hard stop in like 2 minutes?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I won't keep you much longer. What opportunities do you see, like as an investor who like knows all about all of the upcoming cool things? Do you see coming out of this sort of big uncomfortable year, shifts in reality, like all of these things? Like what do you see coming out of this?
Oh man, you asked me a question that two questions in a row that I'm completely unqualified to answer. I think, for us at Ludlow, the way we think about investing and thinking about the future is like we try to realize that most of the time on phone calls with entrepreneurs, we are the dumbest people in the room. And we kind of built our philosophy around finding people that are smarter than us, that have a better pulse on like what the future is, and then betting on those people. Cause I think that's what we're really good at is finding those people. And so unlike a lot of other firms when you are like thesis driven and say like, 2021 is going to be all about like, changes in healthcare that are coming out this pandemic or work from home technologies or, whatever it is, like we do none of that because I think that is a poor use of our time. And instead we spend our time trying to prospect and find the people who are best able to make those predictions about the future. And so like I've spent zero time thinking about like, hey, what's going to become from this year, both politically or from the pandemic or whatever. I worry more about just trying to find like really amazing people that we can bond with and create relationships with that have an answer for those questions that I end up buying into.
Oh, nice. I said that was a great answer. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, that's the truth.
Yeah. So what's next? This will be the last question. What's next for your team at Ludlow?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're still, we raised our third fund, and we closed it the kind of first quarter of 2019. Did I say first fund or third fund? I don't remember what I said. It's our third fund, just to clarify. Our third fund. And so we've been investing that for almost, the last 2 years now, which means we're getting geared up to raise our fourth fund, which will be a similar model. Like we're just going to keep trying to find amazing people that we can build really deep relationships with that are working on cool things. And we're going to keep the fund size the same. So it's like $50 million. First checks, usually about $750K into those seed rounds and sometimes pre-seed rounds. So that's what's next.
Fund size the same? Don't people usually, maybe not, I don't know. But I don't know.
Get bigger?
Yeah, like don't people usually like kind of scale it up? But then I guess we'd be pushing later stage.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a tendency for funds once they get a little bit of traction to kind of increase, their fund size. Like it was a really hard time to raise our first fund, and all credit goes to my partner, Jonathan. He's like a great fundraiser and much more likable than me. And so he got all the money in the coffers. And
is very charming.
Yes, he is. And so that's why I fell in love with him. And so he raised all the money. And then the second fund got a little bit easier because we had a track record. Third fund was even easier. It's looking like thank God, the fourth fund will be even easier and we'll be like have way more demand than the money that we want to raise, which is such a blessing. And so there is a tendency for funds to like take that because, as I alluded to earlier, like we get paid a percentage off of the funds that we manage. And so like it's easy to get greedy and be like, oh, more money like in my pocket. But that really does fundamentally change your strategy and like the types of companies you can invest in if you need to lead deals and stages. And I think we're very honest, like we're best suited at the earliest stages. And if our fund size increases, that has to change too. And we don't think we would be great, like world-class investors at that. And so we're staying disciplined and just keeping the fund size the same because I think that's what we're the best at.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very good. Discipline. That's very disciplined of you guys. I like that though. That's cool. And you guys have had so much success at it that I feel like it's like, I'm glad to see that you're staying true to your roots.
Yeah, we got to stay humble. Trust me, people tell us all the time that we're not that great. So it's easy.
Not true. Okay, cool. Well, I will let you go. Thank you so much for being on. I was going to tell everybody else really quick. Let me do this awkward thing that I've not figured out how to do this transition yet.
Cool.
See what I'm about to do.
Let me see if I can help you.
Next week, we're having Emily Heintz on. I'm super excited from Rise of the Rest.
She's wonderful. That's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, she's so cool. She talks about.
I've never met her, but she seems great.
She talks about like emerging entrepreneurial ecosystems like all over the country.
Oh,
and,
sweet. She's going to be a much better guest than me. I'm almost positive.
She's with Ludlow Ventures. Have you know that the Cases Fund?
Yeah, we've done a couple of deals with them. Bloomscape, which is based in Detroit. We're co-investors in, and that's going really well. So very highly respected.
a random fact about one time I interviewed Steve Case for something. And he, for people who are not familiar with who Steve Case is, he started AOL. And I interviewed him for this thing. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what was your AIM name? Like,
wait, what's AOL? I'm just kidding. That was a joke.
In the beginning of the interwebs, like my eighth grade,
that was a joke.
like you do remember like figuring out what your handle was going to be for like instant messenger, and then like depending on what angsty teen phase you were at or angsty college phase where you might change it and then be like, I'm going to be this now. I said like, I was like, oh, what was your name on thing? And he was like, Steve.
Fair enough.
God, because he's the founder, so he's just like, it's to
Steve. That's easy. Whatever.
And he's like, yeah, when you get in on the ground floor, and I was like, you're so cool.
Blake is my partner. Blake, who's like into, media and kind of networks and stuff like that, is dying for someone to create like the next like AIM away message, like status, like company that just becomes like universal, because he thinks that would be great.
Oh my gosh, it was so great. Like I missed that era. Things. Now there's too many things, but
there's a lot of things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Tell Blake to tell me if that he sees that, because he sees all that cool stuff.
For sure. You'll be one of the first users of AIM 2.0.
That would be awesome. Okay, cool. Yay. Well, I will see you soon, hopefully, and I'll see everybody else next week on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Okay, bye.
Bye.